It's actually that the settings have all changed. So I think we've navigated it, Kristina, and I think we're here
Okay,
together live.
great.
So welcome, Kristina.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
Kristina, I think we've known each other since we were about 18 or 19,
Haven't we?
which is rather a long time. So,
Yeah.
and by wonderful coincidence, we both work in the field of coaching. Kristina has a real expertise about what we're going to be talking about today, which is the thinking environment. And Kristina, can we start off by you telling everybody how you got involved?
Okay, so it was during my my master's at Henley Business School in coaching and behavioural change, and in there are lots of different modules, and in the first stage we had um, a session of the thinking environment, and really loved it. It was great. I just loved the way that it slowed down for people to think for themselves, and the lack of interruption. I think um, it was so simple and yet so expert. It was fabulous. And the lady um, who gave us the demonstration, and James, she's really talented in it too. And I think probably that inspired me to get involved. And then later on in the course, there's about 3 stages. You go into advanced coaching, and we talked. We had lots of different modules again about reflective practice, and we had Nancy Kline come in for half a day, was it? I think. So really got into the nuts and bolts of it, and then you start to specialize after or towards the end of your masters. And I thought, oh, quite like that worked well for me, and I enjoy doing it. So I had a look at some courses, and they just happened to be down the road.
I
Yeah,
love the fact.
literally
I
10
love
miles
this lovely
away.
coincidence for
I
you.
know, and people were flying in from America and all around the world to join these courses, and I just had to drive down the road. So yeah, meant to be, I think.
I came across Nancy Kline's work early on since moving to Ireland and was really A, intrigued by it, but B, then a little put off because I had this belief that it's incompatible with the ICF. And
Right.
so I think it would be useful today to think that through a little bit more because I think there is a lot of similarity in a lot of ways that ICF coaches work with Nancy Kline's work. And I was wondering if you could perhaps talk us through the the thinking environment and those 10 factors that you were describing to
Yeah,
me.
sure. I mean, I agree too. And I think as the competences have changed, I can't remember when they changed last, the ICF ones, but I think even more useful,
So
more
much similarity, yeah.
yeah. Um, and yet they were poles apart, like you say, weren't they, at one point?
Yeah. I
So
think there's a and I will talk to this as we go through because you're the Nancy Kline person, you're the thinking environment expert, and I really know the ICF
yeah.
side of things. So let's speak to it as we go through. I think the key thing is that the ICF doesn't like kind of scripts or set questions, and
Right.
yet there is so much within what you're going to um, allow with this process that allows us to prepare ourselves as coaches.
Yeah.
And actually, there is a lot of alignment here. And we, as coaches, we bring different techniques and we ask permission, we contract for them. So it's certainly not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, definitely.
Would, would you set the scene for people that
Yeah,
don't know this stuff and talk us through those elements of the,
yeah,
I can't
definitely
remember
will
using
do.
a different word, but the elements of the
Components.
thinking environment.
Yeah, the components. And before I do, I just suddenly realized that I used a word, and I heard you repeat it. I used it first, the word expert. Within the thinking environment, there's this question that's there that supports the whole thinking environment, which is, who is the expert?
Okay.
And it pushes it back to the client. So we're not the expert as a coach, but the client is the expert of their own thinking. So I just want to correct myself there before.
No, I love that. And sorry, that was, I think I was dumping
No, I
that
think it
on
was
you.
me who
But
said it first.
I
So
I use that though when I'm talking to coaches that I mentor and actually clients that they know they're the expert of their
yeah,
stuff. My
exactly.
my role is to create the space for their
Yeah. But I
thinking.
think it talks into that whole power thing as well, which is a
Yeah.
completely different topic about, coaching presence. So anyway, 10 components of the thinking environment, which is a way of being. So it's a way of being in your home life, in your life, in the coaching space, um, in the environment. And yeah, a system of being, a way of being. And the 10 components come together to create this system of, as I've just said, which creates an environment for people to do their best thinking. And it's also one of the key underlying principles is that people are not interrupted. There's lots of work around it so that the environment that you hold is about the client, the thinker, not you, the coach. So 10 components. Number one, if you're going to use a list, but you kind of you jump around all over the place, but number one is attention. And the belief is, or the philosophy is, that the attention from one person generates the thinking in another person. And this attention gives another level, another kind of ability to listen to your client. And what the kind of the statement that I use to support myself in that is listening to ignite somebody else's thinking is different from being in a space where you're listening to reply to what somebody's just said. So you're just, you're generating attention.
I've just done what I used to notice beginner coaches do, which is to go like I almost hear something and then go straight into the
Yeah.
answer rather than creating the space. No, I love that. I describe it in my words, not
Yeah.
thinking of words, but as almost dialing up. Imagine a dial and kind of tuning up your attention, so you're not just listening
Yeah.
with your ears, but your eyes and your whole body in a way you're kind of sensing.
Yeah.
Um,
And that
I love
leads into that leads not actually that leads quite nicely into the three streams of attention. So you're listening to content, but not to reply. You're listening, and the next stream. So the first stream is content. The next stream is response, which reminds me of what you're saying about the new coaches. So it's about being aware of your responses, not just what you're saying, but what your body's saying when you're
all
listening.
of that. Ooh.
or as I tend to frown, which I'm not cross, I'm just thinking, but it's about your response in the situation. And then the third stream is the whole of the thinking environment, which is back again to the 10 components, or what else, or we can call them the 10 behaviors too.
Okay.
So that's the first one, attention. So it's listening without interruption and with interest to where the person will go next in their thinking. So you're kind of following them a little bit like a train rather than
Okay.
rather than you putting down the barrier and going, stop, I've got a great question here.
Yeah, rather than you deciding what's important to listen to or steering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's the next one?
Equality. So this is about regarding each other as equals, of course, but also, but really as thinking peers. Yeah. And also giving equal time to think when it comes to doing some of the applications. So it's about, it brings in all sorts of other traits and things here, I think, that one.
And you mentioned the revision of the ICF competencies, and that was very much part of the revision of that and the code to change some of the language, which had a sort of power difference implied, like coach and coachee, and all of
Yeah.
that. There's a to make it the sense of equality come through.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's quite refreshing having, thinking as thinking peers. I quite like that.
Yeah. And it also speaks to going back again to that idea about where the value is. Your value as a coach is not answering, solving, fixing, directing. It's
Yeah.
thinking and listening.
Yeah, that reminds me of another. So so another of the kind of principles or the philosophy behind it is that, of course, the thinker knows best what's best for themselves. They've got the answers within them.
I
That's
love
what
that.
works for them. They're more aware of their context, their environment, and all the stuff that's going. I mean, the stats around it. You only verbalize was it 3 or
I have
10%
no
of
idea.
what you actually
Very,
think.
very little.
Yeah.
And ease.
Yeah, so E is number 3. So this is about internal urgency, or disregarding it, or trying to get to a place where you can disregard it. So it's about being at ease.
So is that what the kind of, oh no, where are they going next? What do I need to do here? How can I bring value? Kind of internal dialogue stuff.
Yeah,
Trying too hard.
I
The
think
kind
so.
of,
So it's for both of you. It's for creating
uh,
ease for yourself and your client. So it's because, and then thinking back to the 3 streams, it's about your response. So if you start thinking like that, you're giving, it's gonna leak somewhere, isn't it? I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I always say to people to do less, be more. And I think it speaks to that bit in the way I'm interpreting it.
Yeah, and that reminds me, there's also paradox within generative attention. There's paradox underlying is there the whole time. So it's like you've just said, you slow down to speed up, basically.
Yeah.
Being able to hold paradox within the attention.
Um, this is just reminding me, I'm doing an awful lot of communications coaching at the moment, and that's the classic for most people. It's actually to go slower.
Yeah,
Most people communicate so fast that they don't give themselves time to think about what they're going to say before they say it.
exactly. And a question, if you can slow it, I think so much of this work is about slowing down the pace,
Mm.
way that the speed with which you ask the questions, and where you put the definition in the words that you're saying. It's really important because it facilitates, like you say, thinking.
I've been doing a lot of leadership work right around the world, and I think it's the number one thing that I find from those senior leaders. They don't get time to think. They don't get space in their day. So important. Christina, I'm moving us on. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just thinking of so I have thinking partner sessions with another lady, and just that whole thing of being into a space where you can be easeful and just let your own thoughts almost just ease into your body. It's so refreshing, and you can actually start thinking, you can do your best thinking. It just kind of lands in a different way when you can slow it down, and it can be at ease in you, the information, you're anyway. Yeah,
I
just
can
reminds.
remember when you, years ago now, when you gave me a few sessions of
Yeah.
the process, and noticing that I need to keep going. The way my thinking works, it kind of needs to kind of come out and churn, and just, and then there gets a point where I can actually, it's almost DIY coaching. It creates that space where I'm
Yeah,
just answering my own questions. But yeah,
I think we
it's a
do need
very
to hear,
powerful process to be part of.
I think we need to hear our own thoughts out loud, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Got to.
appreciation. I'm really glad that before we started that you went through this list with me, because
Yeah, it's
I
quite,
would I've written it down.
bless you. You can start thinking, because they integrate as well, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
One leads to another. So so appreciation. This is um this is quite difficult, and I think it's quite difficult for some cultures more than others. And it's about saying what you notice in somebody else that's good. So it's actually appreciating other people. And it's really, really hard to do. But it gets easier, and it's lovely to receive, and it can be validating, and it can take, it can be generative too. Yeah.
The ICF has something about this within our competencies, which is around
Oh, okay.
championing but not cheerleading.
Oh,
And they make
okay.
that so it's not just saying stuff like awesome job for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It's actually really giving that feedback about what we
Mm,
know, what we're noticing.
yeah. And it's what we notice over time as well. It's not kind of just in the
Yeah,
moment about what people are talking about. It's not just agreeing with somebody. It's
yeah.
more general qualities. Mm.
We're doing well with our list, Christina.
Yeah, we are, aren't
This
we?
is,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
enjoying this.
enjoying this. So thank you. I'm hoping other people are finding this helpful because it's interesting to hear this different perspective, which has got subtle differences, but a lot of similarities. And we're on to encouragement.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, as the word says, this is about giving courage to the thinker, really,
Okay.
or the client. Sorry, I'm using those words interchangeably, so the thinker or the client,
Okay.
to go to the edge of their thinking.
So is that kind of creating the space for them to be courageous?
Oh,
Oh,
complete.
I guess
Yeah,
it. I'm
yeah,
actually
the
now
word. Yeah,
answering my own question by looking at the word.
exactly.
Yes, Marianne, a
Spot
clever
on.
girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, love it.
And yeah, and also in this space of encouragement, it's also trying to take out competition because of the way that can be quite negative to somebody's thinking. So it's about their thinking. It's not about somebody else's thinking, you know.
Okay, I'm struggling to get my head around that one. They're thinking, not someone else's.
So once you start to compete with somebody, you're competing with somebody else. I mean, I know
Okay,
you'll compete with themselves even, but it can be a barrier, it can be a block to getting
okay,
where you want to get to. Mm.
okay. Um, I've got feelings
Oh,
next.
yeah, yeah, it's I think there's a lot more research being done about this, isn't there? And I think this is more out there. But I think when this was first put together, this was quite different. So feelings is about welcoming the release of emotion, whatever form
Okay,
that may take. And of course, in this thinking environment, especially in the coaching relationship, it's a confidential, it's protected space. So
yeah,
um, what might be appropriate somewhere else, not appropriate somewhere else, is more appropriate in here. So it's a way of releasing emotion. And often um, the emotion has to be released again before you can move forward, I think.
okay. And then I'm presuming that there's a similarity in that this is welcoming the release, noticing the release, and asking questions around it, but not necessarily, tell me about your childhood and what caused that.
I mean, so no, the questions are still, I think you have to be careful about your own experiences, about the questions that you're
Okay,
asking. And it's not about if somebody starts crying, it's about also treating them like an adult. So
yeah,
uh, maybe give them a tissue if they need one, but it's for
but
their
not going, oh, no need to cry, please stop, all of that. Okay,
exactly, not
okay,
not into the child space, keeping it in the adult space.
okay. That's
And
a
it can
useful
be
thing.
difficult for some coaches, but I
Yeah,
think yeah, emotional release is good in the right place.
yeah, yeah. Some coaches do step in and try and rescue us. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by the next one as well, the information one, because I think when we were talking about this earlier, I'd kind of got the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, when you're so being sure about information, and I think in this day and age as well, it's when you think about the broader thinking environment, not just in the coaching session, there's so much false
Misinformation. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Um, so being aware of your facts before you take action, I think, do the research, and also when you're the thinker or the client, you may need information. It's not just all within you necessarily. I mean, most of it is, but you may need to clarify facts before you can move forward from where you are. Yeah, does that?
Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, things that um, like if you're trying to work out your next steps in your life or in your business plan or whatever, you may need to find something technical out before you can move forward, like tax regime in a particular country or something like that,
Okay.
that is not within you. Yeah.
Okay. And I know we talked about equality, but now we're going to talk about difference.
Yeah. So difference, up until several years ago, this was called diversity, but this is taking diversity into a place which I think is more edgy. And I think it's more accepted now, but when we first started to work with this, people were really quite no, I don't like that. No, what's wrong with diversity? But it's about, so this is about, we're all different. And it's about the difference, not just in divergent thinking, but also from social context. And we are all different based on our experiences, whether that be social context, whether it be what, you know, there's such a range. So this is about freeing ourselves from, so a lot of the work behind the thinking environment is based on assumptions. So this is about freeing ourselves from untrue assumptions. So a lot of it is about finding the untrue assumption. But in this component, it's about the untrue assumption about prejudice. So it's thinking that through. So it takes it to a different place, I think.
Okay.
It's different. It's yeah. I'm not sure that I've explained that one particularly well, to be honest. But
Don't think it matters, Kristina. We are giving people a snapshot of the
okay.
thinking environment.
Okay.
And we have plenty of opportunity to delve in deeper in these conversations and develop them further.
Cool. Okay.
um, I know we may not have time for thinking really about incisive questions, but that was the next one. That's number 9, I think.
Yeah, so this is about again about untrue assumptions, and it's about freeing the mind of untrue assumptions. And often the untrue assumption stops somebody from moving forward from where they are. It becomes a blocker. So and especially if it's lived as true, so they live an untrue assumption as true. So
Okay.
they need to work through what the untrue assumption is, and then reposition that. And move forward. And there is a framework that can support you in that within the other applications of the thinking environment and Nancy Kline's work.
Okay. And we're at the end of our list. And we wanted to talk about place.
Yeah, I like place. I like this one. So this is about, I've always been intrigued by this one. It's about the physical environment that you create. Again, we're talking about coaching presence, I think, aren't we? So it's the place, the space that you, I don't know, is the word hold too coachy, for your client. And it's and what you do and what you have and where you have your conversation or your dialogue or your thinking time is a way of telling somebody how much they matter. So if you take care about it, and of course the other part of place is not just a physical space, it's our place, our bodies. So both the thinker
This is
and
our kind of mental well-being and preparedness for how we
yeah,
show up.
I think they all tie into the
Okay.
well-being piece. I think well-being, even though it's not a component, is a definite from all of these behaviors. It's yeah. It's
When you think of place, Kristina, tell me about your favourite place.
yes. I've several. Usually somewhere with a beautiful view, I must admit. We can really see the landscape. And at the moment, I think that's probably the Pyrenees, south of France, where I'm lucky enough to have somewhere. So yeah, looking forward to hopefully spending more time out there, working out there.
And
You.
we are working on a project together, which I'm very excited about. And we were going to invite people to join us in a couple of weeks, but what we've decided to do is use that time and space to prepare a really exciting retreat offer for other coaches to join next June. The idea being that we can create a thinking environment for coaches and talk more about Nancy Kline. We can be adding in some conversations about this over the coming months to tell people more information about that. But is there anything else that we need to think about today, Kristina?
But just to add on that these retreats also were to talk about the ICF monitoring as well, weren't
Yeah,
they? To
it's
join,
about reflective practice,
yeah,
really, isn't it? It's
exactly.
about creating thinking spaces for ourselves as professional coaches. People will get the advantage of, starting the work down the Nancy Kline route as well, and some supervision and reflective practices for themselves as coaches. Kristina, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to say goodbye for now, and we will continue the conversation in chunks fairly soon. And I'm going to just stop the recording.